The dark side of Roman emperors. The Roman Empire, one of the greatest civilizations in history, was built on the foundations of law, military power, and grand architecture. However, beneath its majestic exterior, the empire was also marked by a ruthless power struggle, corruption, and the tyranny of its emperors. Some of Rome's most infamous rulers, like Nero, Caligula, and Commodus, epitomized the darker side of imperial power. These emperors were not just rulers, they were symbols of cruelty, manipulation, and paranoia that would shape the empire for centuries. Nero, the Mad Emperor. Nero, one of the most notorious emperors of Rome, ruled from 54 to 68 AD. His reign is often remembered for its excesses, madness, and cruelty. Nero's rise to power was marked by the murder of his mother, Agrippina the Younger, whom he initially adored but later saw as a threat to his throne. His rule saw the infamous Great Fire of Rome in 64 AD, during which Nero was rumored to have played the lyre and watched the city burn from his palace, though historical accounts remain unclear about his involvement. He later blamed the fire on Christians, beginning the first major persecution of the group, which involved brutal executions and horrific tortures. Nero's paranoia drove him to commit numerous murders, including that of his wife, Octavia, whom he had executed after accusing her of infidelity. His political enemies were also not safe, and many senators and influential citizens were murdered under his command. Nero's obsession with power, his erratic behavior, and his cruelty ultimately led to widespread rebellion, and he committed suicide in 68 AD, marking the end of the Julio-Claudian dynasty. Caligula, the emperor who went mad. Caligula, the third emperor of Rome, is often remembered for his extreme cruelty and apparent descent into madness. His reign lasted only 4 years, 37 to 41 AD, but in that short time, he became infamous for his erratic and tyrannical actions. Caligula was initially loved by the Roman people when he first ascended to the throne. However, after a severe illness early in his reign, he reportedly became increasingly unstable. His cruelty knew no bounds. He is said to have made his horse, Incitatus, a consul, which many historians believe was a symbol of his disregard for the Senate and the Roman political system. Caligula frequently humiliated senators, forcing them to participate in his absurd games or condemning them to death on whims. His reign was also marked by sexual depravity and acts of sadism, including having people tortured for his own amusement. Caligula's rule was cut short when he was assassinated by his own guards in 41 AD. His death led to widespread relief throughout Rome, but his legacy of madness and brutality left a lasting scar on Roman history. Commodus, the emperor obsessed with glory. Commodus, who ruled from 180 to 192 AD, is another emperor whose actions are deeply associated with the darker aspects of power. Unlike his predecessors, Commodus was not born into greatness, and his reign was marked by a sense of self-obsession and a hunger for personal glory. His reign marked the decline of the Roman Empire, with his reckless leadership and obsession with gladiatorial combat. Commodus was fascinated with the gladiatorial games, not only as a spectator, but as a participant. He fought in the arena himself, portraying himself as a great hero of Rome. However, his performances were not those of a noble gladiator. He fought only against the weakest of opponents, and he would often boast of his victories, inflating his role in the games to ensure his image as a mighty warrior. His vanity and desire for personal glory undermined the empire's political structure. Commodus grew increasingly paranoid, suspecting even his closest advisors of treachery. He was responsible for purging those who he thought posed a threat to his rule, leading to numerous political executions. His reign was marked by economic mismanagement, and by the time of his assassination in 992 AD, the Roman Empire was in a state of decline. Commodus's death led to the chaos of the Year of the Five Emperors, further destabilizing the empire. Assassinations and political purges. The machinations of imperial Rome. The dark side of Roman emperors was not limited to personal cruelty or madness. It was also characterized by the constant threat of political assassination and purges. The emperor's position was never secure, and many rulers met their end through violent means, often orchestrated by those closest to them. The Roman political system was deeply entrenched in conspiracies, with the emperor always having to worry about plots against their life. Assassinations were not just common but expected as rivals sought to claim the throne. Some emperors, like Caligula and Commodus, were so paranoid that they trusted no one, leading them to purge even their closest allies. The political intrigue within the imperial court often led to gruesome outcomes. Senators, generals, and even family members were murdered to secure or maintain power. The most notorious of these acts was the assassination of Emperor Domitian in 96 AD, who was stabbed to death by his own servants and court officials. His death marked the end of the Flavian dynasty, but it also set a precedent for the fragility of imperial power, the paranoia of the Roman emperors. Roman emperors were often consumed by paranoia, constantly fearing betrayal from those closest to them. This led to widespread executions and conspiracies, as those in power struggled to protect themselves from imagined threats. Nero, Caligula, and Commodus were all consumed by fears of rebellion and assassination, which in turn led them to take extreme measures to safeguard their reigns. Their acts of violence, tyranny, and cruelty often stemmed from the belief that they could trust no one. The influence of the emperor was absolute, but so was the fear they lived under. The power of Rome's rulers came with the burden of constantly looking over their shoulders. Their reigns were often marred by betrayals, plots, and the ever-present threat of death. The shadow of assassination hung over every emperor, leading many to act in ways that only intensified the darkness of their rule.